Hello! In this video, we're going to walk through the Scrutinizer licensing page inside the admin section and answer the most common licensing questions we receive. You can find this view under Admin, Plixer, Scrutinizer Licensing. So let's walk through these fields and explain what they all mean. At the top, you'll see the product license. In this example, the system is running Plixer 1 Enterprise. This tells you which license tier is currently applied. Core and Enterprise have different capabilities. Enterprise includes advanced analytics, machine learning engine, an expanded replicator capacity, and high availability. Other license types provide other functionality. If you're ever unsure which feature set you should have access to, this field is the first place to check. Next is Status. Status shows the status of your license. Here, it shows valid. Other fields will show invalid, expired, or even evaluation for a proof of concept or proof of value. If the status ever shows invalid or expired, you need to contact Plixer support or your account team to generate a new license key. Below that is the days left. In this example, the subscription will expire in 213 days. This is your countdown timer. It helps you plan renewals before expiration. If this number is getting low, it's time to engage your Plixer representative or support team, so there is no disruption to reporting or analytics. If this ever hits zero, collection will stop and access to the product will be restricted. Customer ID is next. This identifies your organization or the environment the license is issued to. If you ever open a support case, you may be asked to provide this value. This is how we identify which customer we're talking to and which systems or licenses the customer owns. Machine ID right below it is critical. This is the unique identifier tied to this specific Scrutinizer deployment. When generating or updating a license key, Plixer uses this Machine ID to create a valid license. If you migrate the system to a new hardware or deploy a new virtual license, the Machine ID will change. That means a new license key will be required. This is one of the most common licensing questions we receive. The next is server count. Next up, machine learning. The Plixer machine learning engine adds behavioral analytics to your flow data. It applies unsupervised and supervised models to baseline normal behavior, detect anomalies, classify malicious traffic, and even forecast capacity trends. With its ability to detect unusual communication patterns, identify brute force or lateral movements, classify malicious traffic, or forecast future bandwidth utilization, you'll be able to see anomalies tied to specific assets, timelines showing when behavior changed, and direct pivots into related flow data. For NetOps, this helps anticipate capacity issues. For SecOps, it services zero-day and emerging threats based on behavioral change rather than just signatures. It turns raw telemetry into prioritized, explainable findings. You are entitled to run. The export account defines how many exporting devices can send flows to the system. Finally, we have Plixer Routers Analytics. Plixer Endpoint Analytics adds user and device awareness to network visibility. Think of it as enriching the context here in your investigations. It enhances monitoring by tying identity and endpoint information to network behavior and integrates with solutions like Microsoft Defender to bring in vulnerability or risk-based metadata as well. This allows you to see which users are associated with an IP address, detect abnormal login activity, correlate host behavior with network flows, or strengthen investigations with identity context. If a device suddenly begins communicating externally at high volumes, Endpoint Analytics helps you identify the associated user, device role, and related activity that you get from detections through our machine learning or other analytics. Simply put, it closes the gap between network telemetry and endpoint intelligence. This field overriding what is already in there. Then click Save. The system validates the key immediately. If the machine key matches the machine ID and subscription, the status will update to valid. If not, you'll receive an error message indicating what needs to be corrected. Let's also take a quick look at the exporters section of the admin panel. Oftentimes, we get asked about exporters that are consuming licenses and how to manage that. When an exporter is retired in the production environment, the data that is behind that exporter will still reside within our system until it ages out. This view here will give you an idea of where those licenses are applied. The export licenses are applied to which exporters. There's a filter option at the top here where you can look at status to check or uncheck and see which ones are no longer licensed or have a license. This is also a section where you can remove licensing to or from an exporter. Note that when you remove or when you change an exporter from enabled to disabled or not having a license, it will delete data stored in the system that pertains to that exporter. Be cautious to only do that if you absolutely do not need that data anymore. Let's chat about a few questions we commonly get. What happens if my license key expires? Generally speaking, that will depend on the license type, but for most licenses, flow collection and analytics will immediately stop. Be sure to renew before expiration to avoid service interruption. What happens if you move the VM or upgrade hardware? When you do that, your machine ID will likely change. Therefore, you will need a new license key tied to the new machine ID. Please contact support in that case. Oftentimes, we get asked, how do I increase my exporter or reporter limits? Again, contact Plixer's account team with your machine ID and current license detail. They can help you figure out what that new limit needs to be and help generate a license or figure out how to get you to a new license level. In closing, the licensing page that we reviewed earlier gives you a complete snapshot of what tier you're running, how long the subscription is valid, how much capacity you're entitled to, and how much you're currently using. If you ever have questions about limits, renewals, or expansion, this screen is the first place to check. Plixer One, powered by Scrutinizer.